I am going to be planting some canary creepers, which I don't know all the fancy classification of what type of plant it is, but it's these beautiful blooms and foliage that climbs and grows in abundance in this area. And I would like for these canary creepers to climb over the door frame and onto the metal grating, I don't know what they're called, that covers my windows, so that there can be a very beautiful covering, privacy cover. That's my dream, but it's going to take a long time for these creepers to grow from seed. However, it's fine. Everything else I grew from seed did pretty well this year. I started sowing seeds in March, like literally March 1st. And it was still very cold, very wintry, but despite the struggle, some plants made it. And now my garden is very beautiful and on a budget. These I got a few weeks ago, and I was meaning to plant them 2 weeks ago, in between the time where I had finished finals and everything was done. But then I had annual training because I'm in the National Guard Army, and I was busy and I forgot. But that's fine because it's still spring, it's still cool weather despite the heat wave that's been happening this week. Still lots of rain. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how these do. I've only got a few in this little bowl. I already soaked them overnight for 24, or actually 48 hours. So they should be fine to plant because they have a hard shell, a hard exterior, which a lot of plants like lupine or certain types of seeds, just you need to soak them overnight for them to even germinate. So right now I'm sitting in my garden, if you couldn't tell already, under this beautiful green, jewel tone green umbrella that I bought from Facebook Marketplace, which is good because I have a heat intolerance to the sun and I still like gardening. Sometimes it's easier to do it in the shade. I honestly don't know everything about gardening. I like just to search YouTube videos up and then do whatever makes sense based on my intuition, what I think makes sense. Because there's a lot of, tips out there and people don't always agree with each other. But one thing I like to do when I plant seeds is I like to plant them close together, even though people tend to say plant them further apart. Because the more crowded they are, the more interlocked their roots grow. And I always find that when they're close to each other and their roots are locked together, they become a stronger, more resilient plant. Now, it's not always the case. That's how I feel. So I kind of ran out. I have some organic potting soil right here. This stuff smells like cow dung, not going to lie. But I really like this potting soil compared to Miracle-Gro with all the added stuff in it. Some plants can't take too much organic good stuff though, and they prefer poor soil. like my nasturtium that's right next to me. Right here I got some nasturtium, and I can't wait till these bloom because they're going to be a lovely coralish salmon color. Excuse me. They're going to be a lovely coral salmon color, unlike the usual color of nasturtium, which is yellow, orange, and red. Okay. Now I am going to take these seeds, plant them. There's one thing I wanted to talk about today, and that is uncertainty when it comes to building an unconventional path. Now, when I first started college, I was very hell-bent on doing something conventional. I majored in neuroscience, which I still find very fascinating today. But after some time, I didn't really enjoy clinical studies and research, and I didn't think that particular field was interesting enough for me to be a pioneer or pilgrim in that area. Especially after meeting people who were very fascinated with that path. I knew I was a fraud. And it wasn't my fault. I just had convinced myself that something as interesting as neuroscience was for me. And it wasn't. Sometimes that happens. Had I been true to myself, I would have started off in where I am now. But I didn't know better. And if I went back in time, I still would make the choices that I made because it taught me a lot. I still stayed on a conventional path, though, in college. I started teaching, tutoring. I was really interested in teaching, and I loved teaching of all ages, tutoring all ages, of all different kinds of people in different backgrounds, whether they had special needs, whether they were young or old. Excuse me, I'm itchy. And a part of me still believes that there will be an aspect of teaching in whatever career I pursue later on in life. But I don't think teaching is for me, not in a classroom setting. And uncertainty can be very scary as a young person who's a little bit more on the creative side, because it takes some risk and some unconventional choices. And unconventional choices can appear sometimes as not really good choices. But the important thing is finding something that you're good at and that you like and that you could see yourself doing every day. I know that sounds common advice, but it's true. And sometimes it may the career that you choose may not be glamorous, or it may take a lot of steps to get there because of how niche it is. But just do everything you want to do with purpose and intention, and you'll do well. As a gardener, as my first year gardening, actually, my own place, my own spot, it takes a lot of intrinsic desire to cultivate the plants that I'm cultivating. And if I don't want to cultivate a certain plant, you're probably not going to take care of it well. But the ones that I really desire to have and to view and see, I'm going to take care of those plants because there's something driving me inside that I'm not relying on externally. So it'll always be there. Although it's my first year gardening, I know that I'm going to stick with it because gardens are always near and dear to my heart. Growing up, I'd always garden with my mom. She was the gardener on call for our church in the front, making sure that the window boxes or the planters were kept well and watered, as well as our own garden. And other people, friends, who didn't know how to take care of plants or want to take the time to do it, my mom would teach them. And then, of course, I was always her little helper. And even though it was a drag sometimes, some plants need so much water or so much attention. It was always appealing to me, the beauty, the process. Now, it's currently just a hobby. It's not something I want to take on professionally. I'm not there yet. But there's an aspect of gardening that I think is just so fun, exhilarating. Gardening helps me revive my other internal drives, such as my desire to be an editor, my desire to make content and video content. It's just one of those things that helps me meditate and regain mental clarity. And it's free therapy because plants have a special way of communicating really profound concepts like growth, the cycle of life, beauty, ugliness. Ugliness because of all the disgusting, fat, chunky worms that freak me out till this day. Or the creepy crawly bugs that just land on me and think my body is a log. When it comes to desire for something internally driven, there's a lot of impatience, especially as a young person. The amount of times I caught myself being impatient, probably most of the time. But starting to understand that things take time. And just because they take time doesn't mean you should give up. It takes time for reasons. And those reasons, they're often boring. But despite them being boring, they're necessary. Because it's just part of the process. And that's okay if you get frustrated. And it's okay if you get worried. But it's all part of the process. You have to remind yourself that. But if you understand that it's not about the destinations or the results or the consequences of your actions, but it's the actions themselves that are often rewarding, then you get to just chill. I'm a little worried because there's a lot of twigs and a lot of pieces of wood. They should be fine. I know that this soil is better for roses. I'm also going to be planting some zinnias. But they kind of look like dahlias in terms of their blossom, which I think is going to be extremely beautiful. And even though it's really sad that they're annuals, they're such a beautiful flower that brings a lot of vibrance and happiness. So I'm planning on planting not all of them, this is way too many, but some, and giving some to my mom.